right. Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Hall. I'm a senior Mitel engineer over here at Verteks Consulting, and welcome everyone to this month's Mitel Connect webinar series. Today's topic is going to be focused on administration tips, specifically related to holiday scheduling and some other just kind of system maintenance and status things that come up. We're going to look at a few different things that have come up in some recent, support issue trends that we've seen over here. We've had multiple calls about the same kind of subject, and help everyone get some experience from those. So I'm going to go ahead and pull down this slide, and we're going to get into my Mitel Connect system. All right, and so here is my Mitel Connect director. This is the login screen. In my case, we have Active Directory integration enabled. So rather than log in with the username and password, I can actually click the button here to log in with the Windows username that I'm signed on with. Okay, there we go. All right, so I've logged into my Connect director. Obviously, if you've ever logged into Connect director, you know it does bring us to this maintenance dashboard. We're going to circle back to this a little bit later on. Right now, I want to start out with the holiday scheduling. So it's that time of year again where we have several holidays coming up: Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. Lots of people are trying to get their phone system configured to, maybe give a closed message or a holiday greeting message during that time of year. So we're going to go take a look at in our system. First thing I want to take a look at is our Auto-Attendant. So our Auto-Attendant is the menu tree, as some people refer to it. A call comes in and, thank you for calling Verteks Consulting. For service, press 3, for sales, press 2, and so on. So Auto-Attendants are found under Features and Auto-Attendant. Here's our VCI main AA, which is extension 1400 in our system. This is our main Auto-Attendant. Now, in our case, we do have a greeting, as I mentioned, that says thank you for calling, gives people some choices for sales, service, and so on. I always like to give the example when we're talking about, using holiday schedules, different types of schedules and routing, open and closed hours. Sub-businesses may prefer to always have kind of a live answer. Maybe you have a receptionist, front desk person that answers all the calls live without playing a message. I typically still recommend that we bring your main line into an Auto-Attendant, just so that it gives us a place to apply these different schedules. As you can see, we have tabs here for on hours, off hours, holiday, and custom. If you wanted to have live answer, my recommendation would be to create an Auto-Attendant, and then under the on hours tab, we would have no recording at all, no message here, and we would just send calls straight to, with this timeout, we could say calls go to extension, and for example, I'll put my extension in here, 1455. We can set this timeout here to 0, because the timeout here is usually allows people some time to enter a digit. Like if you know your party's extension, you may enter at any time, or press 2 for sales. But we can set that to 0, set the destination, the timeout destination to our receptionist, and we can still use an Auto-Attendant. We can send our main number into, in this case, extension 1001 for this menu, send them straight to our live answer receptionist during the day, but it gives us the option to then apply a schedule and maybe have a closed message when we don't have our receptionist here, or insert a holiday message when we're going to be closed for Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and so on. So I do like to point out that we typically will have an Auto-Attendant on your main number, even if you are live answer during the day. So then the next thing I want to show before we actually look at how to apply the schedule is on the left-hand side, a little bit below Auto-Attendant. In the features list, we have schedules, and we have 3 different types of schedules. And the 3 different types of schedules have a couple different parameters for how they can be configured. The first one is just the on hours type of schedule, and our on hours schedule type is also named on hours, so it's a little redundant. And an on-hours schedule is the one you were typically going to use for your, 7-day week. What hours are you open? What hours are you closed? In our case, we've got that set from 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday. We don't have anything listed for Saturday or Sunday. So this just lists the hours that we're open. And when you apply the schedule to an entity, obviously you're on hours anytime that's defined by the schedule, and you're automatically off hours anytime that the time is not encompassed by the schedule. And then we do have a time zone option here for our multi-site systems that span different time zones. You can actually specify the time zone for the schedule so that you make sure that the auto-attendant is working correctly, even if calls come into a site in the Eastern time zone, but the business division is in the Central time zone. You can make sure that the auto-attendant plays correctly by using the time zone. So that's the on-hour schedule. It's just Monday through Friday. There are no specific dates here, like we can't put 12/25 in here for Christmas or 1/1 for New Year's Day, that sort of thing. That's where the holiday schedules come in. So the holiday schedules, these don't have any times. There's no 7:30 in the morning to 5:30 in the evening. It's just simply calendar dates. And when a holiday schedule is in effect, as soon as the calendar clicks over, again, based on the time zone, so it will happen, at 12 midnight Eastern time in our case, it's going to basically turn this holiday schedule on for us if one of these dates is in, is equal to today's date. So that's a holiday schedule. It's real simple. You just basically, we can add one here for upcoming holiday. I'm going to call it test here, and then we can just pick a date on the calendar to apply that. And that's all there is to adding to your holiday schedule for upcoming holidays. Because in most cases, we already have a holiday schedule. We just need to come in here and kind of make sure that it's up to date for the upcoming holidays. So as soon as your company kind of decides, what those holidays are going to be observed for the upcoming, year or however far in advance they decide those things, we can come in here and populate this holiday schedule. I'm going to click the reset button on here and not make any changes. We do need to get some holidays in here for our upcoming holidays. The third type of schedule I want to show you guys is the custom schedule. The custom schedule has a little bit of a combination of the last two because we can specify a date on the calendar and a time range. So in this case, maybe you don't want to have that holiday schedule play for the entire day. Maybe you're going to close early for, Christmas Eve or Thanksgiving, or come in, have a, in this case, a holiday party scheduled at a certain time of day that overlaps with your normal, on hours day-to-day business schedule. Then you could use a custom schedule to only carve out, whatever hours during that day you want to play a specific schedule. So those are the three types of schedules: custom, holiday, and on hours. So now if we go back to our auto-attendant, we can kind of look at how those interact with our auto-attendant. So here's again our main AA for our company. And as we can see right here on this screen, we can see that the on-hour schedule named on hours is applied to this auto-attendant. The holiday schedule named holidays is applied to this auto-attendant, and the custom schedule called early closing is applied to this auto-attendant. You could have multiple holiday schedules. So if you had another department that was going to observe different holiday schedules, maybe sales has different holidays. I don't need to put any dates in there, but maybe sales has different holidays, and maybe they have a different auto-attendant. So you could go to, their auto-attendant and put a different holiday schedule on it. So for example, I could come over here, and if this was our sales auto-attendant, you would then be able to see in this column that under the holiday schedule type, this auto-attendant has a different holiday schedule than this auto-attendant. So that's something to be aware of if you do have different business divisions or departments that are going to be observing different holidays. You do have that ability as well. Let me go ahead and just turn that off real. Whoops, that took me there. I need to go here. and we'll turn that back off. All right, so back on our main Auto-Attendant, the three types of schedules, there's a certain order of precedence in the way these operate, and that order of precedence or priority essentially works from right to left across the screen. So under custom schedule, if there's a time defined in that custom schedule, say today's date at 10 o'clock in the morning, then that schedule will take precedence over everything else. So when we're looking at our Auto-Attendant, we have an on hours tab that has a specific greeting and some button options. And we have an off hours tab, a holiday tab, and a custom tab. Each of these tabs has its own recorded greeting, and it can have different button functions defined. So when the custom schedule is in effect, the calls that come to this Auto-Attendant are going to do what it says under the custom schedule because it's the highest priority schedule. So again, if it's defined for right now, then it's gonna take effect, even if there's also a holiday scheduled for that date, because the custom schedule is the highest priority. If there's no custom schedule, then it's going to check the holiday schedule and see, is today's date listed in there? If it is, then we're going to operate this Auto-Attendant under the holiday schedule, under the holiday tab, play the recording here, and provide these button functions under the holiday tab. As you notice, we have an off hours tab, but there is no off hours schedule or off hours column, and that's because off hours is simply the absence of an on hour schedule. So as you saw, the on hour schedule is defined from 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. If it's not those times, then it's off hours. So if the custom schedule does not apply, the holiday schedule does not apply, then we just check to see if it's between, in our case, 7:30 to 5:30. And we're going to either do what it says on the on hours tab or the off hours tab. So that's kind of the precedence of the schedules. And so, yeah, basically, if you are, now that we kind of talked about how the schedules work, now we can, decide what we want to do on our holidays. If we're simply going to be closed on, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, maybe Thursday for Thanksgiving, we're just going to be closed all day on those days, nice and easy. Then we can come to our holiday schedule, and we can kind of quick jump to the schedule here, or we can come over here to holidays and find that schedule. And we can make sure that we have the right dates defined in here for the dates we're going to be closed. And then very important to make sure that we have the right greeting under Auto-Attendant, under our holiday tab. You want to make sure that you listen to this greeting. If it's been a while since you've scheduled a holiday, some people have different approaches to the way they do their holiday recordings. Some places will simply say, in our case, thank you for calling Verteks Consulting. We're currently closed in observance of the holiday. Please call back during our normal business hours. And that schedule, because it just says we're closed for the holiday, can be used again and again for any holiday. In some cases, maybe you want to record a specific one that says, we're closed on this specific date for this specific holiday, and we're going to reopen on this specific date. In that case, you'll need to replace this greeting kind of for every holiday. So just prior to the holiday that's going to be coming up next, we need to get in here, because it's not going to happen until the holiday schedule occurs. We can get in here at any time prior to that date, and we can re-record our greeting that says, we're going to be closed for the holiday. When we are operating with recordings, I'll show you real quick, we have a preferences button here, and we can choose, do we want to play and record using our PC or our telephone? I always recommend using the telephone. It has the most, consistently good quality, where with your PC, you may have a good microphone, you may not have a great microphone on the PC. So I always recommend using the telephone, and I always recommend using the handset on the telephone rather than the speakerphone, just so you get kind of the best quality recording, unless you're having like a professional voice talent make your recordings for you, and obviously they have a studio and they ensure good quality on that for you. But so if we just want to review what is on our holiday tab and make sure it doesn't say we're closed for Memorial Day when it's Thanksgiving Day, We make sure that this is set to go to the right extension. We can save that, and then we can click the play button, and it's going to make my phone ring, and it's going to play me that recording just so that I can review it. If I want to change it, I can click on the record button. Again, it's going to ring that phone. Maybe you're the administrator, but you want someone else to make the recording. So again, I could come in here and I could put someone else's extension in here. So maybe I want Brittany to make this recording for me. So I could save this setting here, and then if I click on the record button, it's going to ring Brittany's phone, and then it's going to walk her through making the recording. It's going to say, please make the recording after the tone. When finished, press pound, and so on. And I can, obviously, will have told her that that call is going to be coming to her, and she can make that recording for me, and I can save it. So that's kind of how we operate with the play and record buttons and the preferences button here. If you're having that recording made, you know, typically if there are some professional voice recording companies that we use from time to time, and they make recordings for us and they deliver them to us in a WAV file. Does have to be a very specific format, 8,000 hertz mono, ULAW. We can import that WAV file here with the import button, so they can just click that and then, you know, browse to the location where that file is and bring it in, or of course erase. If you erase a recording and there's no custom recording that you've made under this tab, it will still play kind of a default recording from the ShoreTel system that just says, you know, thank you for calling. If you know your party's extension, you may dial it now. That's kind of all it says. So erase doesn't actually give you a blank auto-attendant. It gives you a canned auto-attendant from the Mitel system. So again, like I said, make sure you have the right recording under the right tab. We talked about if you're going to be closed all day, we would use the holiday schedule. But again, maybe you're going to close, you know, early for Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, that sort of thing. You're going to close at noon rather than, you know, 5:30. So in that case, you might want to use the custom schedule to play that message. So you could come over here to your custom schedule. And you can, you know, add that you're going to be closed early for, New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve is going to be on the 31st this year, and we can set that. We're going to close at noon. The stop time, now the stop time for this, you know, obviously the custom schedule has precedence. So as long as the custom schedule is in effect, that's the message people are going to hear. We know that we close at 5:30. So we could simply set this to play until 5:30. You can also type in here. We could set this to close at 5:30, and then at 5:30, it's going to play our normal closed message. Or we could just have it go until, you know, 11:30 to say that we're going to be closed for New Year's Eve. Just a decision that's up to you. But in effect, you want to kind of make sure that you understand how these schedules are going to relate to each other. So in this case, our custom schedule, we could stop it at 5:30 and let our callers hear our typical closed schedule after 5:30 on New Year's Eve. So we can save that, come back to our auto attendant, and again, you can even use a combination. You can have, you know, maybe New Year's Day you're closed all day and you define that under the holiday schedule. New Year's Eve you're closed half a day and you define that under the custom schedule. But in that case, you're probably going to want to have maybe the same recording under both tabs. So you just have to make sure that you do have the auto attendant down here under these different tabs for holiday and custom, that both of those tabs have the recording that you want and the button functions configured how you want. So hopefully that gives a good explanation on how we can use holiday and custom schedules for our mainline kind of call routing changes that are coming up here for the holidays.
Hey, Steve. We had a quick question come in about having more than one custom schedule.
Okay. Yep, I see that there. Yep. Thank you. So yeah, we can have more than one custom schedule defined in the system, but we can only apply one custom schedule to any specific entity. In this case, we're mainly talking about auto attendants. That is the most common place where we apply schedules. So we have one that says early closing. Again, I'm going to pick on the sales department. Maybe they have a couple. Maybe there's sales meetings that happen at different times, and so we can create a custom schedule for those. And again, we're going to give it their time zone, so we make sure that it applies at the right time. And then we can say, November's meeting is going to happen tomorrow, at 10 o'clock, to 11 o'clock, so we can save that. So we've created more than one custom schedule. But again, when we come to our Auto-Attendant, so we've got our main Auto-Attendant right here that's using the early closing, because we're going to be closing early for New Year's Eve in the scenario that we were working with. But maybe we have a sales Auto-Attendant because we have a different number that comes into sales, or maybe if they press 2 from the main Auto-Attendant, it drops into the sales. And on this one, we could have the sales meeting custom schedule applied. So you can have more than one custom schedule, yes, but you cannot apply more than one custom schedule to any specific Auto-Attendant. But you can, again, we can come into this early closing custom schedule, and we can define as many times that this schedule is going to go into effect. So we have New Year's Eve, maybe we have Christmas Eve as well in here. We're going to close on the 24th. Of course, it's already Saturday, so we're going to be off anyway this year. And again, we can play it through 5:30. So we can do multiple entries under our single custom schedule that applies to one Auto-Attendant. But again, if you do have to kind of go a little bit further and maybe read into that question a little bit, we've got this custom schedule here, and we're closing early for Christmas, and we're closing early for New Year's. There's only one recording under this custom tab, so we can't get the system kind of pre-configured to play, on 12/24, thank you for calling, we're closed in observance of Christmas Eve, and then on 12/31, a different recording that says, thank you for calling, we're currently closed for New Year's Eve. There's no way to get the system pre-populated with both of those recordings. We'd have to actually come in here, between Christmas and New Year's and replace that recording under this custom tab for our Auto-Attendant. So hopefully that answered your question, and maybe some others that might have come up. It's definitely a good way to some good points to understand about how this works.
Yep, looks like we had a couple more questions come in, Steve. I apologize about my voice, everybody. We had one come in recommending the date ranges example. He said for like Thursday and Friday for Thanksgiving, or maybe being out for Christmas, should you set those separately? I'm guessing is what Robert's asking, or can you set them? And then we had another one come in from Roth. They were asking if you can make 2 separate schedules for different facilities, like during the hurricanes. So if you have 2 different Auto-Attendants, I believe you could probably set that way. But what do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I'm trying to just get my screen to show these questions here. So I can make that a little bit bigger.
And another one come in about setting custom times for hunt groups. So I know we're going to probably get into hunt groups a little bit in just a few minutes. So.
All right. So yeah, now I can see those questions a little bit better. So yeah, to the one question we have here about recommendations for date ranges, Thursday and Friday for Thanksgiving, or the week of Christmas. So yeah, the only option we have for we don't have the option to do date ranges. We just have specific dates. So yeah, in some of these cases where schools or different organizations are going to be closed for the entire week, we do have to come in here and populate each specific day. So 12/25, 12/26, 12/27, and so on as each specific day. I think that was the question there. Same thing applies to the custom schedules. We can't do ranges there. There's a start and stop time on the clock, but not a start and stop date. And so, to do dates on here, you would essentially do from, 12, or 00 time to 11 59 or 23:59 on the 24-hour clock. But yeah, we can't do any date ranges. We just have to list all the specific dates on there. And then the other question was about 2 separate customs for different facilities during the hurricane schedules. So yeah, if they're different facilities and they have, maybe different auto-attendants, then yeah, you can apply different custom schedules to those different auto-attendants. In most cases, most published numbers, we usually recommend front-ending with an auto-attendant to be able to help us make these schedule decisions. Like I said at the beginning, even if you're not using the auto-attendant to play a recording, you can actually have an auto-attendant that does just route the call to a live answer, but it's a good place to have just a place to apply those schedules. The auto-attendant is a good place for that. And yeah, there was another question about how to apply custom to a hunt group. And that brings up a good point, because I'll show you here. We'll go down to hunt groups. We have a few hunt groups. We don't have any schedules applied to our hunt groups, because the way I think about schedules is they're kind of gatekeepers to where that call is going to go. And I want to get that kind of gatekeeper, that decision made kind of as soon as possible in the call flow of that call. So I want to put it, our main number goes to our auto-attendant, and I want to catch it there and send it to the right schedule so they hear the right greeting, that sort of thing. So in our case, we don't have any schedules applied to these hunt groups. You can apply schedules to hunt groups, but you're limited to only having an on-hour schedule or a holiday schedule. They just don't give us the option to apply a custom schedule to a hunt group. And then as far as the destination, so on the auto-attendant, you saw that we had kind of an on-hours function, an off-hours function where we could have different settings, a holiday tab or function there, and a custom tab where we can have different settings. For the hunt group, we have this off-hours or holiday destination, which means if we have both a on-hours and a holiday destination, or if we have both an on-hours and a holiday schedule defined, when either of those schedules are in effect, in this case, either the holiday schedule is in effect or the on-hour schedule is not in effect, so we're actually off hours, it's always going to go to the same place. So we can't even say, do one thing when we're closed and do another thing if it's a holiday. So the hunt groups have, very streamlined, simplified functionality there. And so we typically don't use those a whole lot in our call routing. Obviously, if there's a specific scenario that requires it, that function is there. But we usually like to front end most of our mainline calls with an auto-attendant and make that decision a little further back in the call flow. So hopefully that answers those questions. One other thing I wanted to point out about schedules before we kind of move on from that topic is we do have these schedules defined, custom holiday on hours. Those can also be applied to a user extension. So let's say maybe I want to play a specific greeting when the business is closed. I want to have a different greeting play if someone calls my DID and goes to my voicemail box. If you guys have been to some of the user training, you may be familiar with the fact that the Mitel system offers us these different availability states. So each user, in this case, this is my extension 1455 on the system. I have these different availability states: available, in a meeting, out of office, do not disturb, vacation, and custom. Each of those can have a different voicemail greeting or potentially even different call forwarding functions. We do have some trainings that go very in depth into how to configure those options from, kind of the user perspective. Right now, we're looking at it through the admin interface, the Mitel Connect director. But I did want to show that just another place that those schedules can be applied. So for example, I have a custom availability state, and I can have my own voicemail greeting when that custom availability state is in effect. And typically, a user would go to their Connect client, and when I want to have that greeting turned on, I would put myself into my custom availability state there. And I'm going to go back to my available for right now. But we can go and use one of those custom schedules that we created. We created a couple. We had early closing, and then we had sales meetings. Maybe I'm in the sales department, and maybe I want to go ahead and put my phone into that mode and play a specific voicemail greeting whenever we're having one of those sales meetings. So just to kind of show another place where those custom schedules can be applied. Same thing with vacation. Vacation will allow us to apply our holiday schedule types. So as you can see, I can only select the holiday schedules that we created over here under the holiday schedule type to my vacation availability state. So vacation and holiday are kind of synonymous in the way Mitel's got this configured. And then as far as a regular on-hour schedule, maybe I just want to have the system use the regular business schedule for my mailbox. So I can come to my available state where, maybe during the day I have a typical voicemail greeting that says, "Hi, I must have stepped away from my desk. Leave me a message, I'll get right back to you." But I can come down here and I can actually apply one of our on-hour schedules. In our case, we had that schedule created that was 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. I can actually apply that schedule to my extension. And what that means is at 5:30 p.m., it's going to flip my telephone into the out of office availability state and play the greeting that I have here. So again, just another place that you could use these system-wide schedules, even on a user, to drive availability state changes on the phone, play different greetings, or however you have your availability states configured for your extension. So I wanted to show that just as another option, because some people do want to have different voicemail greetings, or even different voicemail greetings. Maybe you have a general mailbox that people are directed to. You can have different greetings tied to that schedule if it's a user mailbox, as I just showed, or if it's maybe a work group mailbox. That was one of the other topics that we recently had a few questions about that I wanted to get into. And since we're talking about schedules, I can kind of use that to roll into work groups. So work groups are a function in the system that we would typically use for distributing calls to agents. We have a few different types of calling groups in the Mitel Connect system. The simplest one is the hunt group, which basically just passes the call through and rings a group of phones. The next step up from that would be the work groups that we're looking at now. Work groups offer some call queuing, kind of call center type functions, where if multiple calls are coming in and you only have a couple of agents to take those calls can be put into a call queue where you can play music and messages to them while they wait until an agent becomes available. And then, of course, some of you may be familiar with kind of the most advanced type of calling group is the contact center, which is an add-on application that allows us to do call queuing and a lot more in-depth reporting and some other functions. We do have, again, some other training that goes a little bit further into how to configure and use those three types of groups for calling, for call routing. But I did want to bring you here because another function that we use work groups for a lot is a mailbox, a general mailbox. So a lot of businesses will have a mailbox that's not tied to a specific user. It's maybe the sales mailbox or the service mailbox or the nighttime mailbox. In our case, we have one here called general mailbox. The reason we would create this as a work group, we do have an ability to create a mailbox under the users, but it does use a mailbox license in the system if we do it that way. And it also, there's another function in the Workgroups that we like, is if we create a workgroup mailbox, in this case it's called general mailbox, and we can put some different people into that mailbox, into that workgroup. Even though we're not using this to distribute calls to different people, what it allows is for these users to have visibility using their Connect client. They'll be able to see the voicemails for that work group. So here we have the work groups in my Mitel Connect client. Even though I'm not an agent in a work group and I'm not taking calls for a work group, I can come over here and check this. I have the general mailbox, which I'm a member of, and I can see if there's any voicemails in this mailbox versus voicemails that I may have in my personal voicemail box tied to my extension. And so that's a reason that we often will use Workgroups as a shared mailbox. And so if we are using Workgroups as a shared mailbox, and that, in case that's what the application of Workgroups that we're looking at today, under the voicemail tab, we do have the option here, just like any other mailbox in the system, where we can you know, send an email. I also wanted to look at the routing tab. So under the routing tab for a work group, we have the same schedule tabs here: on hours, off hours, holiday, and custom. And at the bottom, so I'm going to click this button here so we can get a little bit better view of this one work group called General Mailbox. We can see that when we're on hours, this mailbox has a certain greeting that plays. So if some call comes in here and our on-hour schedule is applied, so we can apply it here, and a call comes into this mailbox, they're going to hear the greeting under this tab. Again, if it's off hours, so it's outside of the on-hour schedule, we're going to hear the greeting here. If we have a holiday schedule applied and the holiday's in effect, they're going to hear the greeting for this mailbox here. And same thing as custom, just like with the auto-attendants, each tab has its own recording. But here we're just talking about a mailbox greeting rather than an actual auto-attendant. So that's another place that we can apply our system-wide schedules, is to that. And then the other function for a mailbox that I wanted to show was escalation profiles. So in this case, this is a general mailbox. Maybe you have a mailbox, you know, for your emergency support for your organization, or emergency IT issues or something like that. Maybe you want to, instead of just having a voicemail left and then waiting for someone to check it, of course you do have the option here to email out and hope that someone sees that email. But maybe you want to go further than that and have some kind of active alerting that happens when a message is left in this particular mailbox. So in that case, we can use our escalation profiles. And our escalation profile, essentially, we have, like I said, the ability to raise some alarms and do some additional, you know, notifications to people. So the first choice we have here is, do we want to escalate for each message or for the first unheard message? I would typically suggest, if you're setting this up, most people want to be notified of each message that comes into this mailbox, not just the first one. But maybe if it's a situation where a lot of people are going to call in all at once and dump messages in here, the first notification is sufficient. So that's up to kind of the application of that mailbox. Then we can come in here. We have to give it a name. So this is the one that applies to our general mailbox, right? So I'm just going to do general mailbox. The repeat count. So we're going to come down here and we're going to choose, what do we want to do? Do we want to send an email to an email address, right? email@email.com. Do we want to light up someone's pager? You can find anybody that sells a pager. Or do we want to make a phone call out to someone's telephone? And because this is a voicemail notification, we're not transferring like the live call that came in to someone's cell phone. What we're doing is we're just calling out to them, and the system is going to play them a message that says, you have a new message for mailbox, I think it was 1411. And it's going to give them the option to log into that mailbox and check that message on that phone call. And so we can, simply put in the cell phone number here that we want to put in. There we go, because in our case, our trunk access code is 9. So we can put that in as the notification number. If you're using the pager, then you have the ability to do a pager ID and a pager data. Pager ID is like when you call the number, then you have to kind of put in an extension or whatever for that specific pager. And then the pager data is, the text that gets displayed on the pager. But in most cases, we're just notifying a phone if we're using this, and it's going to call somebody's cell phone, right? And then the way these multiple steps work is after 10 minutes, if this message still has not been checked, we're going to move on to step 2, and we have the ability to do some, kind of the similar thing. So we can call the same cell phone again, we could call a different cell phone, and so on. And you could keep going to different people, or you could just keep ringing that same person's cell phone over and over again. You've got up to 10 steps here that you can take, so you could call up to 10 different people, or dial that same cell phone 10 different times. And then that also works in conjunction with this repeat count up here, where you can repeat this escalation profile for our general mailbox, as many times as you want. So 0 repeats means it's going to run through this escalation profile 1 time, but it's not going to repeat. So if you set this to 1, it actually means it's going to go through these list of steps twice because it's going to repeat once. So that's important to understand about that. And it'll just keep going. So if we set this repeat, all the way up to 200, and we have it, calling the same cell phone over and over again, it's going to go through, 10 times and then repeat 10 times and repeat 10 times. And it's going to keep going until that message is checked. So you can, kind of be assured that message will get checked eventually if you ring enough people's cell phones enough times using these escalation profiles. Now you can have multiple escalation profiles. So let's say I've got one called general mailbox, 1. Oh, it didn't like it because I selected something here, but I didn't put a phone number in there. So in this case, I'm saving this escalation profile called general mailbox 1. It only has 1 step where it sends an email and it notifies the cell phone. I can have a different escalation profile. Call it general mailbox 2. And in this case, I'll skip the email. In this case, it does a phone, and maybe it reaches out to someone else's phone number. So 9+1. I put a different cell phone number in there. And maybe the issue here is that, maybe 1 week I'm responsible for being notified about messages that get left in this mailbox. And maybe, on week 2, someone else is responsible for messages that get left in this mailbox. And so down here, typically on a mailbox, we did talk about applying schedules. The way these are usually used is you don't have schedules to play different greetings at different times on a general mailbox or an emergency support mailbox. So we take the schedules off in our case. And what that means is when there are no schedules applied, when there's no schedules applied, then this mailbox is on hours all the time. And then we can select our escalation profile. So every time a message gets left in this mailbox, it's going to follow that escalation profile that we created where it sends off an email and it calls my cell phone. What we have to do if we're rotating the responsibility for being notified of this mailbox is we'd have to come in here kind of on a weekly basis and change this from escalation profile 1 to the escalation profile 2 so that it notifies the other cell phone that we set up. And so that's kind of how we can use escalation profiles tied to a general mailbox. which is something we recently had a couple of different tickets from a couple of different customers about. So I thought it would be good to cover with our monthly webinar. All right, and I don't see any new questions coming in yet. So I'm going to move on from that. And we just have a few minutes left. One thing I wanted to bring up, because it's something that we, constantly get a lot of questions about, is, something's wrong with my system. Kind of where do I look? And so we'll do just a quick review here in the few minutes that we have of the maintenance section. So in the Mitel Connect director, the maintenance button is this one that kind of looks like a little heart monitor. We're going to click on this. And the first thing in the list here is the dashboard. This is also the screen that it brings you to when you first log in to the Mitel Connect director. It gives us a little snapshot of kind of what's currently happening with the system. We can see call volume, a little bit quiet this morning, call quality, our trunk group usage, how much of our group of phone lines are we using, the CPU usage of some of our devices, and then feature usage, which could be hunt groups, voicemail, different things. Just gives us a little snapshot. By default, it's looking at the past hour. We can change this to 12 hours, 1 day, 7 days, or 30 days if we want to get a little bigger view. You can see this is a typical pattern that you see in a business that's open Monday through Friday. You kind of see the 5 peaks and then 2 days with not much activity over and over again. Same thing with our trunk group usage down here. So we've got Monday through Friday, quiet on the weekends, up and down throughout the different weeks. But if you're getting reports that people can't place calls, people's phones aren't working, whatever it may be, if it's something that's not just affecting one specific person, the first thing I'm going to do is typically come in here and look at appliances. And these are all the different components that make up your Mitel system: the Windows servers, the physical Mitel switches, also the virtual Mitel switches that we might have in your environment. And we can see them all here on the same screen, and we can see if they're all up. If any of them are down or having any severe problems, we're going to see a yellow or red icon over here to the side rather than the green icon to let us know that there's some sort of problem going on. Red, of course, is a pretty serious problem. Usually red indicates that it has lost communication to that device. So we need to go, check power to the device, check the network connectivity to the device, that sort of thing. If it's virtual, get into our VMware, Hyper-V, what have you, and check on things that way or reboot things that way. The other thing that can cause it red is, for example, if you have a PRI for your telephone service. If you lose your telephone service to the carrier, you're going to lose what they call here the D channel, which is your communication to the carrier, and that's going to go red there also to let you know that you've lost your PRI trunks to the carrier. If you're using PRI versus SIP. You'll also see yellow sometimes over here. Yellow can indicate some problems with communication. Usually yellow indicates that you have some phones down, but that's not that unusual depending on the size of your organization to have some phones down, because people may be moving offices, people may have swapped phones, and there's a phone unplugged sitting somewhere. So that's not too unusual to have some phones down and maybe see some yellow on this list. So that's not too alarming. Red would be pretty alarming. We can also go down here and take a look specifically at our servers. So this shows us both our Windows servers, our Linux appliances down here. For our Windows servers, we can actually get a list of all the different services. If you're a Windows admin, you can also go into the Windows services application on the server, and you'll see all these services listed in there, and you'll be able to see if they're running or not. We can also see that right here in Director. But we only see the ShoreTel or Mitel services, not all the Windows services like you'd see inside the Windows services application. We can see some different functions of the system, and to make sure everything is green. Same thing with phones. If you're getting reports that some phones aren't working, maybe in here you can find out that those phones are all in a certain building, maybe a floor of the building, maybe a specific site, and that could indicate that there's some sort of network problem or something like that. So being able to see which phones are up and down is important. In our case, we do have several phones here that are yellow because of a firmware mismatch. We're kind of did an upgrade, and we still need to get the firmware updated on our telephones. So that's why it's showing us this yellow. But it is showing us that the phone is idle. In this case, we have a phone here. This phone isn't actually assigned to anybody, but we have a phone here that is out of service and unknown. That means that's a phone that's not communicating with the system right now. And so that's what you're going to be looking for if you're looking for is a specific phone up or down, or phones in a specific area up or down. And a good way to do that is to use the search function here. You can click on this little magnifying glass, and I can search. Maybe I know that all the phones on the second floor of my building are in the 10.0.61 subnet. So I can filter that, and I can look at just those phones. And so that would tell me if I'm having an issue with, maybe that particular building or floor or site, if I want to define it by the IP subnet, or of course you can search by site. In our case, we just have one site, so that's going to find all of our phones by searching by headquarters there. Or you can search for a specific user. If I want to see, Steve said his phone's not working. Well, it says here his phone's idle, so looks like it's working to me. So I might have to actually walk over there and investigate further. Trunk groups is also a really good place to look when people are saying that they can't call out, or calls aren't coming in. You want to take a look here and see if your trunk groups are green. You can also see at a glance here how many trunks are in service. So our PRI has 23 trunks, which is a typical PRI, and 23 of them are in service. That's what you typically are going to want to see there. I can currently see that 4 of those 23 are in use. I can see down here all the channels are green. I can see that some of them are, again, down here I can also see that they're in use. Another nice function on this section here is the performance tab, where I can see, again, this is set for 30 days because we set that on the other tab, and I can see of these 23 trunks, what's my trunk occupancy? So how many of these trunks am I using on a day-to-day basis? And this just gives me some good information for capacity planning. Do I have enough trunks? Maybe I have too many trunks. So I can kind of right size my service to my needs, make sure I'm, have all the trunks I need, but not paying too much. So that's the performance tab here is a good way to get a snapshot of that trunk usage. And then last thing I'll show today, since we're coming up to the bottom of the hour, is the voicemail usage. This is also a place I like to look when I'm looking at overall system health. In our case, we've got a couple different servers that can host mailboxes, but all of our mailboxes in our case are on this server. So I can take a look down here and see all the mailboxes that are on the server. I can see if any of them are full, or if any of them are maybe not being checked. What I typically look for here is where the total messages and the unheard messages match, and it's a kind of a high number. That tells me that I have a mailbox that maybe isn't being checked regularly. In our case, I don't see anything that looks like that, so I think we're okay. What happens a lot of times is someone accidentally turns on a mailbox on a break room phone, and somehow people call into the auto-attendant and they always find it and they always leave messages there. They never get checked, and then those customers are upset because no one ever called them back. So this is a good place to take a look and make sure you don't have anything like that happening on your system. So that's everything I've got to share with you folks today. I'll take a look and see if we have any more questions that pop in. Otherwise, thank you all for attending today. And if you have any questions or anything we can help with, definitely feel free to reach out to us anytime. We're here to help.
Yep, it looks like it's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.